First of all, thank you for your business. When we went down this path, it was definitely thinking about client needs and changing client behaviors. And we were looking at both enabling better interactions, so natural language interactions, and also helping our clients get to what they need faster, more easily, through a personalized experience. And so that was kind of the initial thinking. And we started small. We've since expanded. Since we launched, Erica has served over 42 million clients and who have interacted with Erica over 2.2 billion times. So speaking of scale, we've definitely been able to get a lot of value out of it for the business and for our clients.
Excellent. Now, Andy, you had mentioned scale. So FICO, a number of data science software patents. You yourself, an inventor of many of them. I think your personal patent count is at 140?
Almost 140.
140, excellent.
Yep.
That is amazing. Now, from that, you've written a number of articles. One I read was very interesting. It talked about generating AI at scale. So what do you feel companies are doing wrong?
So one of the things that we've observed, and I continue to observe this, is that many folks do not understand that when they develop AI and machine learning, it has to be intimately sort of married with the software that's going to be deployed in, and that use case has to be understood. So very often AI and machine learning is treated as a data science project, right, or a research project. And what you really need to do is say, listen, what is the business problem we're trying to solve? What are the constraints that we need to solve for? If I have to generate an answer in less than 10 milliseconds and I need to do 10,000 of them a second, what is that piece of software that I'm constrained to build the AI and machine learning around? And then what is the most efficient and effective way then to develop that AI so it can be operationalized? Most teams separate data science and AI and software engineering in two different buckets. The two have to be the same bucket, right, with different roles in a project. And when you do that, you have this very consistent view of what that operationalization looks like. And if you have that front of mind, then the two are developing both the software and the machine learning such that it can meet those requirements.
Now, one thing you said when we spoke earlier is that anyone can get access to data to build a model, but the question is, how are they using it? They might be using it wrong, like you said. So what is FICO doing to set that standard?
Yeah, so at FICO, one of the things that we're focused on is making sure that we have an AI development and operationalization standard, right? So that's one thing that many organizations don't have. So if you have 100 data scientists, you have 100 different ways that they want to build a model or operationalize. So for us, there's one standard. Now, moreover, right, that standard is how we respond to regulatory questions about models. That's how we're going to respond to the upcoming AI regulation. That's how we develop our expertise, right? So like I have a lot of data scientists that report to me. They all have different opinions. We'll choose one or two that we will be expert in terms of how we have transparency or explainability. And then ensure that everyone uses those algorithms. And we do that through an AI blockchain. So essentially we are leveraging blockchain then to enforce that the standard is followed and that every step has been followed in that process, so that at the end of that, when the model is released, we can check the blockchain, which is an immutable record of everything that was done in the development, ensure that all the steps are followed, the standard was followed, all the documentation and the regulatory or governance pieces are there, right? And at that point, we have a level of confidence that we can release those models that meet those standards and requirements safely and effectively.
Excellent. I want to get back to your AI assistant, Erica. Obviously, it was an investment for Bank of America. So what kind of return on investment have you seen? How has it helped the company? Talk about some of the positives of it.
Yeah, and of course, this is after 6 years, right?
Yes.
So we've been developing Erica for 6 years. We've tweaked and tuned and optimized it over 50,000 times. And so when you look at the aggregate, a few things. For the clients, 98% of our client inquiries today are resolved within under 44 seconds. So if you think about the alternative of picking up the phone, driving to a Bank of America financial center, that's a pretty big win for our clients. So as far as ROI for the client, there's that piece. For us as a business, Erica our clients have interacted with Erica for over 13 million hours at this point. And now if you think about the cost of that, if it was human hours, that in itself tells a pretty good business story. And then on top of that, when you think about retention, driving engagement, deepening relationships, so adding accounts, helping our clients in their moments of need, and also what has it meant for our ability to really transform where our human time is spent. So our associates now, instead of helping our clients with the most, really very basic transactions, they're able to focus their time, which is very valuable to us, on meaningful kind of life conversations. So it's been a really big shift in terms of what goes in digital, what goes to a human channel. And I think the last thing I'd add is that Erica doesn't exist in a vacuum for us. It's part of a continuum where at the very basic end, you've got full self-service. Client just goes in, interacts with mobile or web or whatever. From there, they need a little extra help. Erica's there. If Erica's not able to resolve, we upgrade to a live chat where we have an assistant, but again, it's a pretty efficient channel for us. And when all else fails, we hand over to an agent on the phone. And even there, Erica's able to help by cutting out transfers, cutting out hold time, and getting the client to the exact right person. So really, in terms of ROI for the business and for the client, it's been pretty immeasurable.
I'm wondering if this is where things are headed. Just from a show of hands in the audience, who here has used an AI assistant? I mean, is this where, see, it definitely is. Now, with the challenges with it, I mean, obviously you mentioned you have to keep updating it, updating it all the time. What are some of the other things that you faced when kind of implementing it?
Well, the AI is only as good as the data we train it on, right? And so there was an exciting moment for us. This example I love, back in 2020, COVID hits us, right? And all of a sudden we get all these questions from clients that we're not able to answer about this thing called PPP and Paycheck Protection Program. And so we had 60,000 questions and phrases related to PPP, and we caught it early. We were able to very quickly evolve Erica and again, kind of get back to being able to answer those questions. But you gotta, people think they can just launch and go. And for us, that's the easy part. That's just getting to the starting block, right? From there, it's everything you do. So I think that's one part of it. I think also, and I love, Scott, some of your commentary about having a very specific use case. For us, we started very small. Mm-hmm. And from there, we've expanded so that now what we've done in retail and the consumer side with Erica, well, now we have CashPro Chat, which is built on the same foundation to serve our 40,000 commercial and corporate clients, right? Same idea. And we've got a lot of other kind of AI use cases that we've built off that same foundation. So I think that's really where the investment goes, is what do you learn? How do you expand?
And let's talk about, because you hear so much about data, the safety behind it too. Scott, you've talked a lot about AI governance and regulations. What do you think is being done right, or what do you think needs to be done more? So,
AI has been around for a long time, and people don't understand that generative AI has been around for a long time, and traditional AI has been around for a very long time, making decisions. And the best way that AI gets used is when it doesn't, cause a challenge for us, right? It's properly governed, it's properly explained. I think one of our challenges today is that we're moving a little too fast. In fact, about 7, 8 years ago, there was a big focus on responsible AI when deep learning occurred, right? Because people got enamored with bigger, larger machines that they couldn't properly explain, they couldn't audit, they didn't understand how it worked, right? And these machines are being applied to lots and lots of use cases. Now, some of these use cases are places where maybe a machine learning model is not appropriate or needs to be very, very heavily governed. And so, one of the areas that I have a strong level of concern about is the fact that we're using machine learning and AI sometimes where we don't understand where it should be used, sometimes where we don't understand the regulation associated with it. And so, I think one of the things that we're focused on today is to say, what are those areas where we should use AI and not use AI, and what types of AI? So, for example, right, like in Europe, we have the European AI Act. It's talking about the concepts of high-risk AI and very high-risk AI. We have examples of companies being sued for their use of generative AI because it's making recommendations that are incorrect, right, which could harm people. And I think we need to put those frameworks around what we do there. Some of that might mean that we go smaller, right, in terms of models that we understand, because it's too critical to make a proper ethical decision, right, and then we have to choose different types of technologies. And I think these are one of the things that we're going to have to look at, and in fact, we're going to be forced to do so, because many organizations don't ask these questions early enough. They build the Frankenstein and then they try to put the cage around it, right? Whereas if you start at the very beginning, right, and understand and build up from small, right, and you learn your lessons, right? You'll have the right sort of guardrails in, or you're going to choose an algorithm that you can govern, right, and govern with confidence. And we owe that to the people that we're making decisions with, because one of the worst things about AI, right, is that it can be caustic and callous in the decision making if you don't understand how it's making those decisions. And we, as humans in this room, need to be able to understand how it makes its decisions. If we can't, we really shouldn't be using that technology. And you see with AI regulation, there's a lot of focus there, both on the political front, advocacy fronts, and regulation fronts around this trust in AI challenge today.
Excellent. And Nikki, where else, with all that said, where else is Bank of America using AI, aside from Erica and what we've spoken about so far?
Yeah, I think we're looking at both in client-facing capabilities, associate-facing capabilities, as well as more operational, right? So on the operational side, everything from fraud detection, which Scott obviously spoke about in his context, and but even things like intelligent receivables. How do we look at receivables and payments? So just really driving cost and creating efficiency in the system. On the associate-facing side, we have a great example of client insights, which is for our Merrill and private bank advisors that are dealing with clients all the time. We've created this AI-based system, which is giving them insights about changes in circumstances for their clients that then lets them know, hey, something's happened, something's changed. Reach out to the client, see whether you can help them, and that could lead to tax harvesting or new opportunities. And so on that front, we've served over 30 million insights to advisors that really just helps them do their job better. So I think, again, from that responsible AI perspective, it allows us to still have a human in the loop, right? Mm-hmm. But then also really make that human way more efficient than they would be otherwise and way more helpful to our clients. So I think those are the three categories we're really looking at as well.
Excellent. Now, since I'm in news, I want to talk about some of the news topics that are going on with AI, some of the trends that you guys see. One of the things that we've heard about lately, actually today we've just heard about too, is the amount of power that people are talking about they're going to need to, with all the data that's out there, with AI. Google just came today talking about nuclear power. You've heard Microsoft, Amazon talk about it. Scott, what's your take on it? Because I remember you saying something interesting, which I haven't heard. Larger isn't always better.
Larger is not always better, yeah. So, I mean, I think this is one of the challenges we have, right? And back to the comment about deep learning, right? Our algorithms have gotten more and more complex. And, we need to decide what is the appropriate size of the model or the machine learning model to solve a task. So as an example, right, we all follow what's happening with these large language models, right? And it's almost like something we watch on TV. It's exciting to watch all the celebrities in the AI space talk about all this investment and all the challenge. At the end of the day, right, we are solving business problems or affecting human life, and then we have to make decisions around what we want it to do. So, as an example, right, you can solve the same problems as a large language model with a much smaller version. Like what I build at FICO is things called focused language models that are very focused on a problem domain, like a financial services domain, and then a very specific sort of task. These models are quicker to train, use less energy, and each inference is going to be much, much more cost effective, maybe not even involving proper GPUs, right? And so we need to kind of train ourselves with the fact that bigger isn't better, because very often it contains much more hallucinations, much more noise, right? And then we have this sort of energy component. Right? It's been said by better people than myself that talk about that, more parameters basically talks to the meritocracy with respect to our understanding of what this AI machine learning does. So, one of my big sort of themes that I talk about is essentially that we need to focus on deep understanding of these models, and they don't need to be as large as they are today. And it's the wrong direction, right? And in fact, a lot of the companies that are focused on these large language models are focused on sort of research metrics, not business metrics. It's a very different way that we solve problems today, and we have to just keep that in focus today.
And on the banking side, something we've heard as of late is the number of banking locations closing, more people going to digital, so banks are kind of shutting down doors from different locations. Do you find that at Bank of America, or where do you see that future headed?
Yeah, I think we're always evaluating the nature of what client needs are, right, and modifying our financial centers and the role that they play based on those needs. For us, that has not meant going away from financial centers. In fact, we just announced that we're adding 165 across the country in the next couple of years. We just finished renovating 3,000. We're obviously in it, for the long term. I think, again, it's more about what is the nature of the interactions, what is the time spent in the financial centers. So when the clients come in, it's more of a meeting space in a way. It's for them to have deeper conversations with associates, whether that's about life events or more complex problems that we really want the associates to guide them through. So it's just changed more the nature of the interactions rather than done away with the model. And in fact, we've been on a high-tech, high-touch kind of model for a long time. And again, I talked about the continuum. That's almost at the other end of the continuum, and it's part of it.
Yeah, and that's what we've seen sometimes. A lot of time the banks turning into these places where people can learn more, whether it's small business owners or people in different communities. So I think I understand what you're talking about. So Scott, where else do you see the technology headed? I mean, what are you excited about? Or even on the opposite side, what concerns you? Because you spoke a little bit about that too.
Yeah. I mean, but one of the things that excites me really is the fact that we are talking about, agent-based AI. I think this is actually a good conversation topic. Now, a lot of people view it as negative, right? If you look at the evolution of agent AI, because essentially you end up giving up your control of what that agent does, depending on which level of maturity you have. At the same time, right, the types of problems that we're going to try to solve with AI are very, very complicated, right? And one of the things I think that is, one of the true facts about AI is that we need them to be very task focused. So, I think one of the things I'm excited about is the fact that we are exploring more of this agent-based AI in terms of different functions that it can take on, because I think we're going to have many of these agents working together, right, to make good decisions. And each of those agent AIs could be very complicated models to make them very, very good at their tasks, right? But as we build that up and we have the ability to make those decisions, we're going to start to see AIs being assembled that can really solve really meaningful questions and meaningful business problems. I also think one of the things I'm excited about is the use of blockchain and other technologies to govern these AI models, right? So, should someone make a decision or not? What are the controls we're going to put in place and around these agents? So I see that as one of the more positive things that are occurring from an innovation perspective. And then I think the discussion of AI regulation and what does that mean is really important also, because it's starting to get us away from the sort of Kaggle contest and the large language models and get us into the practicality of making business decisions with models and with AI appropriately. And I think if we can mirror those two things, right, there's this false sort of view that regulation is anti-innovation. That's not the case. Regulation puts on the guardrails to do innovation responsibly, right? And I think that we're all moving in that direction today, and we'll just have to keep moving that direction.
Excellent. Nikki, the last few minutes that we have here, where do you see the technology headed? Where do you see the trends headed, and how does that technology kind of need to advance in order to meet those trends?
Yeah, I think in our space, client expectations continue to evolve, right? We used to talk about personalization. I think that's taken on a new meaning. And so, I would love to get to a world where we're personalized to the extent that when I, walk by Starbucks, I know whether that's a good decision to make and what that latte is going to cost me long term, right? How that plays into my life goals and what I'm trying to achieve financially. I think for us, Erica specifically has always played a dual role. It's been both almost mission control to help guide my financial future in that way, as well as a concierge, just help me get stuff done really quickly. And I think to the point that Scott made around having a very specific goal of what you're trying to achieve, I think both of those we can make a ton of progress on. So making our clients way more efficient and then making it a lot easier for them to think about the long term and also just to know where to be efficient.
That's true. Thank you very much. This was great. Hang tight with us right now. We're going to move on to our IBM sponsor spotlight right now. We're going to look into the rules of AI ROI. Please welcome to the stage Panos Panay with the Recording Academy, and he's going to have a conversation with Edward Adams from Bloomberg. Thank you.
Okay. I'm Edward Adams from Bloomberg Media Studios, and this is Panos Panay, who is the president of the Recording Academy, which produces the Grammy Awards. And I learned just a few minutes ago, actually, an amateur trombonist in his spare time.
Well, not quite amateur. I did go to a music college.
That's true, you did. But it's not your paying gig.
It is not my paying gig.
All right. Well, we thought it was appropriate to have a client like the Grammys and the Recording Academy, since we're meeting today in Hollywood, But we also thought it was appropriate because the kinds of challenges that they faced in creating AI and figuring out what to do with it and how it could be most useful are the same kinds of challenges any company faces, even if Taylor Swift doesn't come and sing at your annual offsite convention. So let's begin with sort of talking about what the challenge was that you were trying to solve, the problem you were trying to address with AI.
Sure. Maybe can I take a second to tell people what the Recording Academy is?
Go ahead.
So you obviously know the Grammy Awards, but the Recording Academy, which is the organization behind the Grammy Awards, is a body of almost 17,000 creators who collectively form the voting body for what you see on TV and other categories that are awarded earlier in the year. But we engage on a number of activities year-round, and those are around advocacy, especially in a time of such rapid change. IP policy is critical, supporting this community, advocating for it, and being a home for what we think is the most important class of citizens, and that is the creative class. In terms of the problem that we've been working together, and we've had a long-standing relationship with IBM, the nominations for the Grammy Awards come out in November. The show is a few months later, in the first week of February. And even though you get to see about 10 categories on your television, there are about 900 nominees every year across 94 different categories. We have a very small editorial team. The Recording Academy is a not-for-profit organization. So as you can imagine, being able to appropriately generate content that is both in volume and in accuracy at the standards of the organization that honors each and every one of these Grammy nominees, because if you're a Grammy nominee, is a life-changing event. Not too many of us get to call ourselves Grammy nominee. That's an important facet of what we do, and that's how we've been working together with IBM and Watson X.
So you had to create a large language model to do this with, but how were you going to try and ensure that it produced accurate results?
That's an excellent question. Obviously, having our team work in close consultation with IBM, mining authoritative data from our end, as well as, again, with support from you to create this LLM model has been a critical part of ensuring that ultimately what we put out there is at the standards of our organization. Like any organization, the biggest currency you have is your credibility.
And it needed not just to be accurate, of course, but it also needed to speak with the brand voice of the Grammys, right? I mean, I think it's fair to say the brand voice of the Grammys is not the brand voice of, say, IBM. They are very different from one another, and you wanted to make sure that this content felt like it was authentic.
We like to consider ourselves a blue chip company.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, certainly. Clearly, our organization needs to also speak to multiple audiences because we have both a consumer-facing brand in the Grammys, but the Recording Academy, which I would guess a number of you may not have even known about, is the organization that's out there engaging with legislators and with industry with respect to the issues that our collective membership faces. So being able to adapt the voice and the style for these audiences is another critical component to what we're doing.
So you've got these 3 months between announcement of the award, the nominees, and the award ceremony itself, and you've got the staff of about 5 people.
Well, the Academy is a lot more than 5 people.
Yes, but I mean in terms of the marketing.
The editorial.
Yeah, the editorial folks. So give us a sense of how much content and what kinds of content this content engine was creating.
Yeah, but by the way, maybe with AI, hopefully we're not 5 people in a few years. But
it's true.
But we do have a lot of work to do. With respect to the content, I mean, this is ultimately both short and long-form content that's distributed across different platforms, whether it's Grammy.com and our various social media handles. And as you can imagine, for every one of these social media platforms, I mean, it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's not a cookie-cutter model. Any one of you who's in the marketing function knows that. So that is the way that we've been approaching this.
So for your companies, even if you're not involved in something like the music industry, certainly you're trying to reach an audience of the public or people who are interested in your content, and you have a marketing function. That's clearly a place where you could use more content than you currently have, and AI is a mechanism to do that. But I think if you look across organizations, there are a whole host of ways in which this kind of an approach could be applied. HR, customer experience, as we heard on the first panel, IT operations, cybersecurity, anywhere where there's content and you wish you had an opportunity to create more of it at a reasonable cost, is a way that you might want to consider using AI to further what your goals are.
And Ed, I mean, we're also looking, again, there is a public-facing aspects of what the Academy does, but ultimately we do serve a membership that engages with our platforms in various ways. So long-term, we're looking to collaborate with Watson X to create, more platforms where they can get help, their questions answered, as we're continuously evolving the way that we're engaging our members, because we are a membership organization. This will play an even more critical role in what we're doing.
Coming back to the AI stories for a moment, give me a sense of sort of how big an audience that this content ultimately reached.
Yeah, so I believe there was over 4 million impressions across our social media, about 1 million during the live stream on live.grammy.com. So quite a large audience in terms of having these snippets of content, again, create unique customer engagement experiences.
Right. And the staff that you have are reviewing this content as it comes out of the engine to make sure not only it fits your brand voice, but the accuracy is there, it's saying what you want it to say, right?
That is correct. The staff plays an active role in the content that's ultimately pushed out there.
Right. It's not just the amount of content, is it, or the fact that it reached the right audience. You were talking to me earlier about, in a sense, the work that you do is very emotional because people react to music in an emotional way. You love a song, you love an artist, and that's what you're trying to generate from this content, right?
Yeah, look, the two of us are on the stage, but there was a whole lot of people involved in making sure the two of us are on the stage sounding this particular way, and this audience is here. And it's the same with the song. I mean, you listen to the song, but the Academy's mission is around honoring excellence and ultimately generating respect and awareness about the craft of recorded music, which is an amazing art form. So certainly with creating these experiences, we want to go beyond just appreciation for the emotional resonance of a song, which nobody needs to teach you that. You come with it at birth, right, with appreciation of music. But more even digging deep behind, I'll say, the proverbial scenes of, well, how did this thing come together, right? And I think we live in an era where people demand authenticity, whether it's the food that we consume or the experiences that we have. So knowing that there's ultimately a craft behind what you listen to generates, I feel, more appreciation ultimately for what you're listening.
It's fantastic. What do you have planned with IBM this year for the Grammys?
Well, we're hoping to work even more closely together to create, again, more unique, engaging experiences. This year, we're starting again engaging consumers through our social handles and our website, and in an even more fun, more unique way. Again, we'll be talking a lot more about it in the next few months. And IBM is a critical partner in general to the Academy with all of our back-end implementations as well. So we look forward to a continuing successful relationship, which is several years old and hopefully a lot more years to come.
Fantastic. Those of you who would like to know more about the Academy's experience with AI and IBM, we'll be posting a podcast episode with Panos on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the places that you listen to podcasts.
All those cameras, and it's going to be a podcast?
There's going to be a podcast, okay. And I got to tell you, if you want to give a Grammy for Best Executive Interview, you know where to find me. Okay?
I wish I had the authority to do that.
Thank you, sir. And thank you all.
All right, next we're going to look into how we can leverage AI to optimize operations. And right now we have with us Dan Dern from Adobe. Thank you for coming out and staying with us for this interview.
Appreciate you having us.
Now, Adobe, it just seems like it's a bunch of technology involved problem solvers. So getting AI involved just seems like a natural transition. I mean, Adobe's been doing it for years, which people don't even realize. But you most recently did something different. You added AI into your finance department. And it was through this finance hackathon is what you called it. And I read an article where you called it a Shark Tank moment. So I want to see if you can explain to everyone here what exactly you did, but what brought it about in the first place?
Yeah, so as we think about this inflection that's shaping end markets, we've got the ability to influence and impact our customers with how we bring this technology to life. But we also have an opportunity to adopt this technology internally and become even better at what we do to improve organizational velocity, get to insights faster, and help shape and drive business impact. So we're going to be leaders in this technology inflection. And as I think about the starting point, anytime you adopt technology, change management matters. And there's a difference organizationally if change is imposed or the organization is part of architecting the solution. So that's the starting point philosophically for me personally. And then from an environmental and context standpoint, we've got technology-inclined problem solvers and a cultural framing inside of the company that great ideas come from anywhere. Bringing all of that together, how do we activate the organization to be a part of the solution? Let's hold a hackathon. Best ideas come from within the organization, had over 100 submissions. There's 4 primary swim lanes, categories, themes that came out. We down selected to about 15 of what we thought were the best ideas, and then like you said, we did a Shark Tank moment. The teams came in, presented their ideas. We went with 5 initially to implement, and the great thing is those 5 teams super excited about architecting the future of finance in Adobe. The 10 teams that were down selected are super excited because they form the future pipeline of opportunities and get to learn from those that come before them. So it's a great moment inside the company, and really proud of the teams.
Excellent. That's interesting how you went about that. Now, were you part of that panel? Because I'm curious to see which shark were you most like?
So not adopting any one personality, I've got a strong belief, empowered teams. My team is fantastic. And so making sure we just create the set of environmentals that surface the ideas and let my team go do what makes them very special, which is prioritizing where we're going to invest our resources to impact the organization.
So how's it going so far? Which ones have you implemented into the company?
Yeah, so as I think thematically, 4 themes emerged. First, unstructured to structured data. Without re-architecting the data systems and hierarchy inside the company, how do we take unstructured data throughout the company and turn it into intelligence to help make better decisions? How do we augment the way in which we forecast around the company and the velocity with which we forecast? Third of the 4 swim lanes was about anomaly detection. How do we surface in an organization as complex as ours, where there's thousands and thousands of points of intersection, how do you surface those anomalies faster so that the teams can dig deep and drive insights, and then general productivity? And so early successes, implementing general productivity across the procurement organization, general productivity around the way we are booking orders in an automated fashion inside of the company, general productivity around how we engage with our employees around things like the employee manuals, our equity compensation, our regular compensation. And as we aspire to grow 50%, 100%, this is about getting the foundation right so we can scale the organization. We are on the cusp of implementing the anomaly detection in a very robust way that not only surfaces anomalies, but also takes a stab at putting the business overlay, qualitative overlay, around the data anomaly. So it's a starting point for the team to dig in. And then the forecasting engine, we've made fantastic progress and are on the cusp of implementing that as well.
Now, how are your employees embracing it? Because that's one challenge that some companies have is getting everyone on board, on the AI train and driving it forward. How are they embracing it?
So I would say enthusiasm is significantly up. Morale in the organization is significantly up because they're engaged in architecting what the solution is. There's a difference between change being imposed and being part of the change. And so again, bringing the employees into the solutioning process. And we see it in the engagement surveys. Those that are touching the generative AI technologies are the ones that are most enthusiastic about the impact they're making and most enthusiastic about the strategy of the company. And it's a bit counterintuitive. You would expect a little bit of the opposite, but making them a part of the solution has really driven high morale in the organization.
Excellent. So you talked about the internal side for AI. Now let's go to the content creator side of Adobe as well. Technology is changing. There's a lot of competition out there. How do you see AI impacting Adobe? Will it be disrupted by Gen AI, or are you going to benefit from it?
So this is one of the great stories about Adobe. As I think about our history, we've been at the forefront of catalyzing some of the major technology shifts that shape the digital economy, and generative AI is no different. As we go back a decade, we've been a leader in adopting AI and machine learning technologies. We've enhanced our products with hundreds of features, implemented copilots to make our customers even more successful. So this technology is transformative, and we're excited about our ability to bring millions of more people into the creative process. But I think what's also important is we underpin it with a really important principle. Creativity is uniquely human. Ingenuity is uniquely human. Our tools are meant to amplify and augment and accelerate the creativity process, not replace it. So we see it as a transformational technology and another opportunity for Adobe to lead and shape.
And one of your Gen AI-powered tools, Adobe Firefly video model. So with that, I know I recently heard that Mattel and Barbie kind of getting involved with it too. So if you could, I don't know how much you could say, but if you could kind of explain how they're using it, but also how everyone else, is able to use it and what makes that technology different.
Yeah, so Firefly is a family of generative AI models. This is proprietary models that we've built based on decades of involvement in the creative space, and whether that's text to image, imaging, vector, design, video. It's an amazing suite of capabilities that we're bringing to life. Mattel is one customer example. We've got decades of engagement and experience with Mattel. They're a great partner of ours, and they're adopting Firefly technologies to go through the creative ideation process around this iconic brand that we all know and most of us love called Barbie. It's a great brand, but how do they cover more surface area from an ideation standpoint, speed up the front end of the process, and where you really find that spark of inspiration? Have you freed up the bandwidth of the team to take that down to the precise detail that brings that standout content to life for their customers? So they're heavily adopting our technology, our 3D technology, and it's making a meaningful impact in what they do.
Excellent. And you've talked about responsible innovation. We've talked so much about innovation. How do you ensure that it's safe, the safety behind it?
So I think this is where our approach to these technologies is different. So I'm going to start at a high level and then work my way down, because the high level is really what influences the thinking in the company. So when you think about an ethical approach to AI, the principles of that ethical approach, accountability, responsibility, transparency. You think about that acronym, ART, accountability, responsibility, transparency is ART. Everybody inside Adobe knows art. And so it informs a perspective. Then what you do with that is the primary driver. And you think about participation across all three elements of the AI technology stack: data, models, and then the interface that bring these technologies to life for our customers. For data, we've got a rich set of data, and we only train on data that we have the rights to. We don't scrape the internet. We don't infringe on IP rights. We only train on the data that we have the rights to. The models that we bring to life, we do it in a differentiated way that's commercially safe. We've taken on the technology challenge with the data we have rights to have best-in-class output across the areas we participate based on decades of experience with imaging, with design, with vector, with video. So we leverage that experience to really differentiate where it matters. We compensate those that contribute to the data set. So we're compensating the community for their contributions. We take an approach that tries to mitigate the harm and bias embedded in the models by testing the output in a very robust way. And then we create feedback mechanisms with the community where they can communicate with us, let us know where we can do even better. And so it's a differentiated approach, top to bottom. We've challenged ourselves to do this differently and bring this technology to life in a very responsible way. Very proud of the approach the company's taking, incredibly proud of the hard work of the team that gets us to where we're at.
Now, you mentioned some of those things, but innovation is great, but it's not always easy, and I'm sure there were certain roadblocks that Adobe hit along the way. What are some of the things that the company has learned from this, and maybe some tips that you can give to the audience about what you learned from some of those roadblocks that you hit?
Yeah, so company value systems are not transactional. They're North Stars that define the approach. We went through a lot of deep reflection about who we are and the responsible role we want to play, and it's informed our perspective on how we want to bring these technologies to life. So don't resist the temptation to be transactional with something super important like North Stars and value systems. That's how companies build cultures that stand the test of time and perpetuate leadership. A comment was made earlier today. Be mindful of the context with which we bring these technologies to life. The real magic happens. The real magic happens around these technologies when you deeply and natively embed them into the products and technologies and workflows that define our customers' day-to-day existence, the products that they know and love. That's where the true magic happens around these technologies. And so being maniacal in the focus to bring the technologies to life in a way that puts you in the customer's shoes, being empathetic to what those workflows look like, and surfacing those technologies in a way that yields real productivity enhancements. Easier said than done, sure. But that maniacal focus pays off over time because your customers benefit in a material way.
And Adobe recently reported quarterly results. So, do you see the AI demand? Is it I don't want to say a fad, but is there still more room to run with it? Do you see softening demand, or is there still more room to go?
There is an amazing amount of room to run. This is truly transformational technology. And when I think about the three market opportunities we as a company are pursuing, the way I frame that is unleashing creativity for all, accelerating document productivity, and powering digital businesses. Each one is a massive opportunity on a standalone basis. When you layer on top of that the substantive changes that generative AI is making, it's TAM expansive in each of those three opportunities, and us as a leader across those opportunities, it's going to power growth for decades to come. And so we feel really bullish about what we see out in the market, the ability to take what makes Adobe special, make our customers successful, and drive investor value in the process. This is not a transitional phase that's going to lose steam. We are in the very early days of something that's transformational.
So as that train kind of pushes forward, what are you concerned about most as far as the technology is concerned?
I would say two things. Velocity at this moment in time is super important. The way I describe it, we're going through a pervasive change right now. There's always going to be disruption in technology. My use of the term pervasive, we're going through an inflection right now. My use of the term inflection means that change disruption is pervasive. In an inflection where change is pervasive, disruption is pervasive, pieces on a chessboard will move. Industry alignment is in flux. Competitive contours of industry are in flux. At some point, those competitive contours begin to recrystallize and advantages accrue to leaders in industry. So now is the time to dig deep. Now is the time to move and move with speed. So that as those competitive contours begin to realign, begin to crystallize, we're in a clear leadership position. Second thing, and I'll often say this to the company, there isn't anything we can't do as a company. I don't say that in an arrogant way, but it illustrates a really important point at this moment in time. We've got industry-leading relationships. We've got category-defining platforms. We've got flagships that define the magic of the Adobe ecosystem. IQ per capita at the company is off the charts, and we've got the financial resources and profile where we could invest in just about anything we want to invest in. So there isn't anything we can't do except one thing, and that's everything. And so prioritization at this moment in time is super important. How do you focus on the things that matter the most? And the two are related. You can see the companies that are prioritizing in a way that their speed and velocity of innovation is going up, not distracted by shiny objects at a really important moment where they try to do too much, spread themselves too thin, and execution crispness atrophies. Those are the two things.
And in the final moments that we have here, where would you like to see AI go next within Adobe, as far as on the content side, or maybe even other departments within the company as well?
So we've got an initiative underway from an internal company operations perspective, whether it's the technical community, whether it's the legal function, whether it's the HR function. There's a pervasiveness of thinking. How do we re-architect the way of working in a way that allows us to scale efficiently off of these levels? It's not about cost compression at Adobe, because our aspirations are to grow significantly off these levels. It's how do we scale efficiently so that the vast majority of the resources going forward go to the things that delight customers. That's the internal perspective. Again, I come back to this concept of magic being made when you bring these technologies to life in the products that our customers know and love. So that concept of deeply and natively embedding the technologies into the workflows that define their day-to-day existence, doing that in a seamless way that democratizes access to creativity, whether it's on the content creation side or the consumption side. There's a real opportunity to bring millions of more people into the creativity process. Super proud that we as a company get to play a role in that.
Excellent. Dan, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for
Appreciate
sitting down
your
and
time.
talking with everybody here. We are next going to go into our next panel, and they're going to talk about how they're using AI to get work done. I know you spoke a lot about that too. Please welcome to the stage our moderator, Bloomberg's Shireen Ghaffari, with our panelists Patrick Day of Rockwell Automation, Desiree Gosby of Walmart, and Ashok Srivastava of Intuit. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone, for being here today. I'm really excited for this panel because in Silicon Valley, as an AI reporter, we often are closely chasing the latest and greatest AI startups and product developments, but today we're actually going to get to talk about what that looks like when it's actually executed, right? What day-to-day, how major businesses are actually implementing these new tools into their workflow. So first of all, I want to pose this question to all of you. AI isn't new, and you all know that. You've looked at you've all been working in AI for years and years. But we have seen rapid progress in the field of generative AI in the past 2 years since the release of ChatGPT, from chatbots to AI image models that can create hyper-realistic pictures, to increasingly agentic technology. What excites you the most about the development we've seen in the past few years in AI? And how are your companies taking advantage of that? So I'll start with you, Desi.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's amazing. Just what has changed over the last few years, and as you said, AI has been just a part of Walmart's DNA, for a very long time. I think when it comes to things like generative AI, we've seen sort of a step change in terms of how it can actually be used to just improve how it is that we do everything, across the company. We focus on how it is that we can use it to improve the customer experience, and how it is we can improve our associate experiences, how it improves our operations, and even things like content enhancement. And examples for us where we're practically using generative AI, something as sort of common as the customer care assistant. We've seen a step change in terms of leveraging generative AI to allow our customers to express to us what their needs are, being able to understand that. And we've seen a double improvement in terms of their workflow efficiency as a result of that. What that allows us to do is it allows that our customer care agents to actually spend more time on problems that are more more complex as a part of it. The other example that I'll give is, and that's been exciting for us, is that just being able to use it to enhance the content within our site. We've gotten improvements on 850 million pieces of content within our catalog, and that just makes it really easy for our customers to find the data that they're looking for, our associates to find the data that they're looking for. And that's just scratching the surface just with generative AI. So.
Great. And Ashok, how about at Intuit? How have you been able to make use of this new wave we're seeing in Gen AI?
Well, Shireen, thank you for having me on this panel. It's great to be here. We're using generative AI, simply put, to revolutionize the way customers interact with our platform so that work can be done for them with their permission. If you're a small business owner, if you're a consumer, you want to have your time spent on what matters to you most. And that might be interacting with customers, it might be interacting with your kids, it might be interacting with your family or your friends. And you want work done for you. And what we're seeing here is an unprecedented opportunity to have work done for our customers with their permission. Let me tell you about one area that we're very excited about. So we recently announced, I think it was last week, we announced that we have created agentic workflows. These are workflows which actually do work on behalf of the customer. We're ramping these up, and we're seeing unprecedented engagement rates from customers with this. We have over 600 million customer interactions that are powered by AI every year. And each one of these is an experience that's tuned for the customer. We have about 4 million models that are helping people do automatic transaction categorization, and that's just the beginning of the story. If you look at our journey in AI for the past many years, has really been on focusing on end customer needs and benefits.
Great. And Patrick, what about you?
Yeah, Shireen, thank you for having me. For Rockwell, it's interesting. We are a Microsoft go-to-market partner, so we got pretty early access to OpenAI. And I think we found a lot of excitement, and I think at some point we were like a hammer looking for nails because everything was exciting about generative AI. It took us about 6-9 months to calm down and really start to figure out where can we apply this technology. And similar to what both of these colleagues just said, we're finding really good cases in customer segments, sales area, filling out contracts, responding to RFPs. We're also using 4.0 Omni for language translations. And really our goal is to try to make the body of work that exists in segments where we rely heavily on interaction much more simplistic.
Patrick, I love that answer and what you were saying about for a while it's like the hammer looking for the nail, and it took some time to figure out, well, how do you actually use this in a way that makes sense for your company? I'm curious, how do you actually do that? There's a lot of substance to AI. There can also be a lot of hype. So how do you know when a new product, such a new technology, is actually ready for prime time to be implemented in your business?
Yeah, that's really what you've heard thus far, right? I think what you're hearing is the technology has been there, the ability to use it has been there. I think the struggle for us has been our own people, actually. So I've said this before, I don't think technology is a rate-limiting factor anymore. I think that's long gone. It's our imagination of how we come up with the cases. The previous guest talked about some of the use cases. We're doing exactly the same things, looking for ways which we can apply it to anomaly detection, but in our case, it's in cybersecurity. We as a company also sell these services to other companies, so we like to, we call it rock on rock or Rockwell on Rockwell. We try to, I guess, eat our own dog food and see if it works for us before we can actually take it out. So that makes it more conscious for us when we look at the products and we try to understand, can it be applied somewhere else? So, I don't think there's anything magic about it. It just takes some time.
Makes sense. Ashok, you mentioned Agentic Technology. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that means at Intuit and how the end consumer may see some of that in tools like TurboTax, QuickBooks, Credit Karma, MailChimp that we're all very familiar with?
Yeah, absolutely. So the most important thing to keep in mind is that agentic workflows, agentic technology is something that is based on generative AI. Now, about 2 years ago or so, we started developing generative AI technology, and we created the generative AI operating system. We call this GenOS. This is proprietary to Intuit, and allows literally thousands of developers to build new applications based on it. One of the key components of GenOS is something called Gen Runtime. Gen Runtime has an orchestrator in it that is powered by a large language model that can do optimization of tasks over time given multi-input and multi-output. So that's a lot of jargon. What it means is that it can do what you and I do on a daily basis, which means that it can, for instance, look at what needs to happen, plan out a path as time moves forward, figure out what has changed in the environment, dynamically adapt, and then take action again, all on behalf of the customer. So for instance, you asked for an example. In the accounts receivable, accounts payable area of QuickBooks, so this is where people are bringing money into their company, sending money out, paying bills and invoices. In that portion of the product, we've created agentic workflows that actually automate a lot of that so that you don't have to spend your brain power going through and figuring out, did this bill for Target, was that personal? Was it for a business need? If so, if it was for a business need, was it for goods? Was it for household supplies? Was it for office equipment? You don't need to do that. It can figure these things out automatically, and it can do it at scale. This is just one example, and as we're going forward, we're starting to see applications, for instance, in understanding small business owners' finances. So using generative AI and an interactive agent-based architecture and framework to help a customer understand their own small business using these technologies. So these are just two applications. If you look at what we're doing, we're literally reinventing the entire company with AI. It's our stated strategy and has been for many years. And this is just one part of it. There are so many other places that we're using these technologies.
Makes sense. I think for anyone who's used an AI chatbot, even the latest and greatest models still hallucinate, right? Meaning you still can get a really obviously wrong answer that anyone with common sense would know is incorrect. So how do you make sure that when someone's doing their QuickBooks accounting, that you are actually getting and trusting this tool, this agentic tool with the right?
That's a fantastic question, and I think one that really deserves some thought and a good answer. So let me take a shot at it. Generative AI operating system has many layers in it, and I mentioned Gen Runtime, which is the planning and scheduling and reasoning capability. But there's also the large language model component to it. That model is actually separated in the following way. As data comes in the form of a prompt, we actually know what's going in the prompt. That generative AI orchestrator is looking at all of the data that's available to it, bringing it in. But the fact is that it might make a mistake. These things can happen. And so we actually have a guardrail there, which is built by another component called GenSRF. This actually monitors what's going into the large language model. What comes out of the large language model is, again, looked at by GenSRF. And this is just one of the techniques that we're using to reduce the hallucination rate. The second thing that we're doing is actually inventing new math that can be used to change the way the prompts are actually constructed. And by doing that, we're also seeing reduced hallucination rates. Ultimately, what we find is that as we employ these technologies, hallucination rates are way down. And on top of that, we're building fallback capabilities so that if there's an error, it goes to something where we know it's 100% correct.
Very interesting. Desi, Walmart is one of the biggest consumer brands in the world, right? And the biggest employer in the US. How much is generative AI a part of both the consumer shopping as well as the employee experience at Walmart? And how do you scale up in that respect?
Yeah, the way that we look at AI and generative AI is it's really just, it's part of what it is that we do. So, and with anything that we look at from as we build it, it's really looking at what's the customer problem that we're trying to solve, what's the associate problem that we're trying to solve, and then bringing the best capabilities to bear to be able to do that. And whether that's generative AI or more classical AI in order to do that. But at the highest level, what we're trying to solve for are two different things. With AI, we have no shortage of problems that are really around how is it that we automate or remove friction for our customers and for our associates and the things that they're trying to get done every single day. And then how do we actually move with speed and at the scale, as you said, with Walmart? And the way that we look at that is by making sure that we've got the right foundational capabilities in place. Shuk talked about GenOS for Intuit. Within Walmart, we have a number of foundational capabilities that we've been building on, and because we've actually had them in place, it's allowed us to move really quickly with Gen AI. We have conversational AI capabilities that we've used that allow anyone within the company to build conversational experiences and to do that quickly and to do that at scale. We have foundational models that we've been building on. We've talked about how generative AI has existed before this latest wave. We've been working on that and codifying with Walmart's data, the language of Walmart, and making that available to all of our development teams so that they can build things, very, very quickly. As a result of that, that has allowed us to solve a myriad of problems, across the company and do that, very quickly, given that we've got 2 million associates and hundreds of millions or 250 million customers that interact with us on a daily basis.
And how do you decide when it makes sense? Like you're saying, you do have your own models to develop the technology in-house versus partner with some of these newer companies or existing tech giants that are expanding their AI capabilities.
Yeah, again, it comes down to the type of problem that we're trying to solve, and we let our customers and our associates guide us in terms of what makes sense. When it comes to, in the case of large language models, when it comes to how it is that our customers speak retail, in that case, we want to make sure that we have models in place that are specific to Walmart, that understand the Walmart data, that are constrained to the Walmart data, that are constrained to our best practices and our core values, but it's complementary to the other capabilities that are out there. So it's not a one-size-fits-all, and part of the foundation that we've put in place is to make sure that we are actually able to plug and play and combine the right capabilities at the right time for the problem that we're trying to solve in order to create the best experience for our associates and for our customers.
Makes sense. Patrick, you mentioned the Microsoft partnership. I'm curious if, just opening up the floor here, how these partnerships with other vendors have been going in implementing some of these really innovative AI tools.
Yeah, and I think for us and our teams, and even from my role here and my previous role, I come from a biotech background, we are very big into partnerships. And while Microsoft is a great company and provides us a lot of insight, there are a lot of things we learn from really small companies. Example, we built a predictive model for forecasting and very quickly realized that we need a lot of causal stuff in there. So we found a small company that does nothing but causal work for financial forecasting. And I think the more we are able to look at these smaller companies that are really good in trying to bring specific skills to us, the better our internal teams get. And again, our goal is always, if we build something selfishly, we're always looking to see if we can commercialize that. Because ultimately, Rockwell in itself has been very good in the OT, IT convergence. They've been around, that's their bread and butter. It's adding all these other components to that now that help when we talk about the partnerships. So yeah, we're big into that.
Makes sense. Ashok, anything to add on when it makes sense to partner versus in-house?
Yeah, so we use best-in-class technologies, and in GenOS, we have large language models from the major vendors, but we also have our own models, and to give you an idea, we have about 10 major classes of models operating in GenOS right now, and this allows our developers to choose whichever model is best for their purposes, and then we have a leaderboard that allows them to analyze that, evaluation framework that helps them understand how these models are performing across a very large number of Intuit specific use cases. And so these are the approaches that we take. We're also building our own large language models based on open source models that are fine-tuned, that are actually much smaller than what you would find in the commercial world, and they're much more accurate. They have lower hallucination rates, and they also have the benefit of having very low latency. So these are very fast models, and at the scale that we're operating at, makes a big difference. So again, about 600 million interactions per year, 65 billion machine learning predictions per day.
Makes sense. How are you all measuring the effectiveness of these newer AI tools? I know it's still early for some of them, but how are you deciding, okay, this does make sense, or maybe this was overkill and we can actually go back to an older technology, or this wasn't the right fit? So how are you deciding that?
So we look at customer benefit, number one, and we're, for instance, in the last tax season, we served over 20 million people with generative AI experiences, and we ask them, like we literally do Follow Me Homes, and we ask them, but we look at the data, and we look at the responses, and the customer interactions and the re-engagement rates with some of these models are very, very high. And so we know that these are experiences that customers want. I hear numbers like 150% index to control. What that means is that in an A/B test, where the treatment is the A and B is the control, 150% adoption over the control. I just hear these statistics very often in different use cases across the entire company. So what we know is that consumers love this. And remember, this isn't just about chatbots. This is literally about reinventing the way work is done. And it's a way of doing it in such a way that it puts the power in the hands of the customer so that that person can determine how they want their data to be used and how they want their output to be taken action upon.
And Desi, how about at Walmart? How are you measuring the effectiveness? And if there aren't, specific metrics you can share, there may be certain examples of where you have seen that these tools work really well.
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar to what Ashok said. It starts with the problem that we're trying to solve, and are we moving the needle and being effective in actually solving that problem, whether it's for the customer or for the associate or within operations. So a couple of examples would be. One, we recently, released our Just Exit technology with Sam's Club. The problem for our customers, like they hate standing in a checkout line. So the faster that we can get them, checked out, the better. And with all of the, the work that we've done with AI, with computer vision, and putting that technology in place, we've seen a 20% improvement in the speed at which our customers been able to check out. when we look at things like for our operations for mid-mile delivery, we've applied AI to basically optimize all of the routes that our drivers are taking and how it is that we pack the trucks just to make as efficient as possible. And then when we took a step back and actually took a look at the impact of that, we were able to eliminate 33 million miles, unnecessary miles, driver miles. And so that's a big impact just within 1 year. It's also a big impact in terms of the reduction of emissions. And so, it really is just a matter of if we're aligned to here's a problem that we're trying to solve, here's how it is that we measure success. And then if we see the impact, then we're going to continue to invest in that.
Makes sense. And how about, what are the biggest challenges in implementing these tools? There's also this component of privacy, which we touched on a little bit but didn't get into. So are the biggest challenges around kind of user trust and keeping data private? Is it around, just the reliability of the tools, all of the above? But I'm just curious to hear if you had to pick kind of one drawback or issue in right now in implementing these technologies, what would you say it is?
Yeah, I don't know that I call it a drawback, but I'd say one thing that we pay attention to very, very closely is how is it that we also protect the customer, whether that's protecting their data or protecting their interactions. And from day one, whenever we are working on these types of models, we have a digital citizenship team that works with us. And, we are very much aware of all of the regulations, legal considerations, reputation risk, all of those things, come into play. And we work together, with our digital citizenship team to basically work through what's the best way to basically solve that and put the right guardrails in place to basically minimize, the impact, to ultimately to our customers and to our associates. So it's not just removing the friction, for our customers and associates, but we also want to make sure that we're doing it in a very safe way. And that requires a lot of careful thought as we work through this and a lot of experimentation. I think the other piece of this that is somewhat of an advantage, for Walmart is because we are so large and we have so many associates, we're actually able to do a lot of testing internally before we put something out in front of the customer, because we really want to make sure that we're getting it absolutely right.
Makes sense. What would you say is the biggest challenge with implementing some of this newer AI technology?
So I would agree that making sure that the data governance, the AI governance, privacy, and security is well taken care of. And I think, Desi, you outlined it very well. What I would add to that is that we're literally reinventing into it. This is a 17,000-person strong company, and we're changing the mindset, changing the way product is actually developed, changing the way we create new and revolutionary experiences. And the outcomes of our work has been quite extraordinary. So for instance, in the last 4 years, developer velocity, that means how fast engineers can write code and put it into production, has gone up by a factor of 8. What we're seeing is that the use of generative AI technology is enhancing the ability to do experiments by 30%. So this is a reinvention of literally every corner of the company. And as we do that, we're making sure that the safety, the privacy, the governance, and all of the other elements are well adhered to, because we welcome and we understand that consumer preferences are going to change with respect to time, that people's issues and their notions of privacy are going to change. That's fine, and that is something that we're building into the platform so that as those preferences change, the platform can evolve along with it.
Yeah, and I would echo also, we're doing some of the same things. I think we early on tried to make sure we wanted to protect both the employee and the company. We locked down a lot of things, but we also created a lot of internal tools like a generative AI playground that allows people to just go on there and learn and experiment. And then when they get to a certain level, you can take it to the next level. But privacy is a big deal for us because we deal with many, many big clients, much like they do. But yeah, I think for us, someone used the term earlier, it's really changing the way we work. It isn't, I know you hear the term change management, but for me, it's really what you did yesterday is not good enough today. And what you do today is not going to be good enough tomorrow. And it's for us, where do we meet our customers, where they are, and really every moment matters. So that's how we approach everything.
Does anyone have like a product wish list of like, if only the AI could do this, or we're a little better at this, then we could, unlock some much greater value? Is there anything like that you all have on a wish list? Open the floor to anyone.
If you can think it, you can automate it. As somebody said this to me, I'm not sure you can do that, but if you could, I'm all for that.
If you could do what? Sorry?
If you can think it, you can automate it.
Okay.
And a previous CEO of a very big company used to say that to us. If you can think it, you can automate it. And I'm like, I wish I could. But, Jeff Hinton just won a Nobel Prize with that philosophy, so maybe we can.
Great. Well, anyone else wants to add to that?
So a little bit closer to the earth, I think that what would be very, very powerful, I'm very excited about the confluence of multimodal systems. So this means systems that can reason, but that can also take in data from a number of senses, the senses that we all have, the 5 senses, but then also other types of data, and fuse it and do reasoning based on that. Now, you might say, well, doesn't ChatGPT or some other model do that today? Not quite. Those models are actually doing fusion in a different way. Mm-hmm. What I'm talking about here is a much deeper analysis of data that would be done by the model, and then reasoning that's based on fact and the differentiation between, frankly, fact and fiction, which is something that humans can do very well and something that machines do need to do better.
Desi, anything else on the wish list?
Yeah, look, I would add, to what Ashok said. It is a misconception that these LLMs are actually doing a lot of reasoning, but being able to sort of truly reason, truly understand, what it is that you're trying to do and trying to achieve. If we're able to really start to unlock that, and those different types of perception, that is really going to, really take things to the next level. And to sort of take it back into fantasy land a little bit, I'm an anime fan, and a lot of what it is that drives me, with anime is you see a lot of, the future, what can be done. And I think if we have these sorts of tools, if we have that, the AI that can start to really reason, we can start to realize, for me, a lot of the things that I love about anime and science fiction in the future. So.
Great, love that. Well, a round of applause for our panel, please, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, great job. Thanks so much. Yeah. I'm actually staying home. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. I'd like to welcome our next guest. And this panel is Unlocking Value Throughout the Enterprise. Kedar Kondap, thank you so much for talking to me today. You can have a seat here. All right. So, Kedar, for those who don't know, can you tell us a little bit about Qualcomm's AI PCs?
Awesome.
Qualcomm-powered AI PCs, I should say.
Sure.
Yes.
Good afternoon. First of all, thank you for having me here. For those that don't know, with a little bit about Qualcomm, we're obviously many of you know Qualcomm as a phone and technology company. That's been our legacy. That's been our heritage. We believe that we want to bring all of the goodness that you saw in phones and all of the innovation that we drove in phones. We wanted to bring that exact same experience in PCs. And so about 4 months back, we announced something called the Snapdragon X Elite. And we coined the term performance PC reborn, because we really believe it was taking performance and intelligent computing to a next level. The reason why we did that is because we really felt that PCs haven't seen innovation in many years. If you think about what we've been able to do in phones, we've been able to drive disruption with even a simple thing like GPS, for example, right? How often are we all using GPS in our phones, and you call an Uber or Lyft, And when was the last time, if you remember many years ago, we'd be in downtown area and you'd lose your GPS signal. But now when you have an Uber driver calling you and saying, hey, I'm in downtown San Francisco, but I've lost my GPS signal, I don't know how to get you. The reason is, we had multiple satellites, we drove innovation, we triangulated multiple GPSs, we got the fix in terms of what we wanted. So just think of those very similar functions as what we want to drive in a PC. Whether that is getting an incredible camera experience, just exactly similar to how we drove an incredible camera in phones, with almost replacing DSLR cameras out there. Now, when you transform that into a PC, you almost feel like the attributes are very similar, right? You want an incredible battery life. You want very good performance. You want very good camera, more so in the era where we're all on working virtual and we're all on Teams calls and Zoom calls every day. We want a very good experience. And then, obviously, we want Gen AI, and we want to be able to run stuff on device. We started our journey with on-device, just AI in general, more than, I think, back in 2017. And we've had on-device AI in many of our devices for more than 8-10 years now. And even our PC products have supported on-device AI. So our journey with Microsoft started in redefining this moment. And what we've introduced now is the Snapdragon X Elite PCs. We launched them in June. And almost every top PC OEM or PC manufacturer, whether it's Dell, HP, Lenovo, all the big guys, they've all launched great brands with XPS and all the typical brands with X Elite, both in the consumer and the commercial space. So here we are trying to redefine the computing space and truly looking at a PC reborn.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And can you tell us a little bit about what kinds of software capabilities this new hardware can unlock?
Yeah. It's just the beginning in terms of where we are. And you've heard so many of these great panelists talk about what they want to hear. And what you heard are so many different verticals. And our job as Qualcomm is that we want to make sure that we're making this as ubiquitous as possible for everybody to be able to use Gen AI. And more importantly, we want it to be on device. We believe that the future of all of this stuff is hybrid, right? So when you think about what software you need and what you need, today, Gen AI is, it's still primitive, I'd say, in terms of what you were able to see. A lot of people are searching, a lot of people are building models. For example, on Snapdragon X Elite, we're supporting 13 billion parameter models today. So all of what you hear on Gen AI from these different panelists is still, it's significant, right? 13 billion is not a small number. But there's a lot of innovation happening on optimizing models, a lot of innovation happening on generative AI. So our job as Qualcomm is we're trying to innovate in terms of working with all these rapidly evolving AI models and working with enterprises to be able to adopt those and deploy it on device or in a hybrid environment, right? So I don't think we're necessarily saying that everything's going to move on device. We do believe that the future is going to be hybrid. There's going to be some form of models that will run on device. There'll be some hybrid where, if you can't fit what you're doing, some tasks that you can't fit on device, it's going to go to the cloud. And obviously for large language, some very large models, I don't know, like 500, 700 billion parameter models, they're going to stay in the cloud. But so there's a bunch of things that we're doing. We're also working with a lot of ISV partners. Almost a lot of the folks that were panelists today, we're working with almost all of them to drive innovation in how we're driving on-device AI through software.
Makes sense. Can you talk a little bit about how the partnership with Microsoft went on this new device? And specifically, I'm also interested in this recall feature that is coming up, right? It has the ability to actually take screenshots of your work and use AI to kind of process what you're seeing on your screen, what you're working on. Obviously, big privacy concerns there too, and Microsoft wants to get it right with the rollout. But can you talk us through how the partnership is going and how new features like this that we couldn't even think of before because you wouldn't have the compute capacity to do such a thing or the AI to process it, what kind of value that can potentially give to the business customer?
Yeah. Good question. Look, our partnership with Microsoft has been deep, right? Microsoft launched all of the Copilot Plus experiences on May 20th, and they were exclusively launched on Qualcomm with the Snapdragon X Elite platform. We've been working with Microsoft for many years now, so like I said, they saw the value in what we're doing in terms of innovation. To build something that what a consumer really wants, I think of it as three big elements. One is amazing software. Obviously, you have the OS, and third is great hardware. Obviously, what Microsoft saw is the fact that we have the hardware. We were leading technology and innovation in terms of driving, say, for example, a 45 TOPS. I know it's not a good way to necessarily look at AI performance, but I wish there's a better benchmark. But for what it's worth, we have a platform that supports 45 TOPS. At Qualcomm, we have a heterogeneous architecture. So what that means is you have fixed function blocks for a lot of capabilities that we're doing. So for example, we have a very powerful CPU called the Qualcomm Orion CPU. We have a very powerful graphics engine, and we have on-device AI with the NPU. And we led the way with enabling this 45 TOPS NPU. In addition to that, we have a dedicated camera ISP, like a camera processor, which is where you can offload all of the camera stuff on there. Within our audio engine, we have a small little neural processor. The reason why all of this is important is we had the vision and the R&D that we did many years ago to actually predict the fact that we're going to have more people on video. You're going to be able to offload your video content on a little video core. You're going to be able to offload all your audio on a video call on a little audio core within the hardware engine. So when you think about that, what Microsoft saw is the value in terms of the hardware blocks we provide. What Microsoft did is, obviously, they re-vectored the entire operating system. So when you look at what Microsoft launched with Copilot Plus, the entire operating system is reimagined and redeveloped, right? So you can, for example, go to a task manager and look at the utilization on an NPU. What you saw before was just the CPU and GPU. Now what you see is NPU as well. So you can actually see how tasks are being offloaded from your CPU and GPU to drive more concurrency, letting your CPU do more. Then you go back. I went from hardware to the OS, and then when you think about software, they have more than 40+ models that they've optimized on device. And so a lot of the work that we did with Microsoft in terms of optimizing these models was, one, making sure it takes advantage and celebrates the silicon. Second, what Microsoft did in working, both of us did together, is these models had to be quantized. And when you quantize the model, we have to make sure that we preserve the accuracy of the model. We want to make sure that the data and the output that we're getting from all of this is still very relevant and accurate. So the work that happened, they announced, for example, the FICO model. A lot of these models, even today, only run on the Snapdragon platforms right now with X Elite, and we also have a brand below that called the X Plus. So that's just where these models are able to run. So the partnership with Microsoft is deep because the collaboration didn't just happen overnight. We invested in our silicon many years ago. As you know, it takes time. They invested in the operating system and the redefinition of change in where the industry is going. And together, we're partnering with all of these ISVs and third-party vendors to be able to take advantage of all of these models. So it's been a great collaboration.
Makes sense. And as enterprise AI gets more capable, right? It can take more inputs. It can offload that video conference for you. It can transcribe the call. How do you think enterprises should be earning the trust of their customers to actually move forward and take in this information? And does a hardware component help with that, because you're saying, hey, this is on your device, we're not sending it out to anyone else, right?
That's the most important thing, right? So look, there's everybody talked about privacy and security and immediacy. So obviously, when you think about all of these aspects, having all of your data stored locally and on device is super important. We talked about, for example, you're talking about personal data. And so first, there's going to be an emotional intelligence aspect, like in terms of how you connect with your PC. The PC is going to be able to much better understand what you're doing. It's going to learn from what you do. Simple things today, if you use Copilot, you start using Copilot to draft emails or even edit your emails. There is an aspect where it starts to understand exactly the tone that you want to use, the kind of message you want to deliver. And so for all of those, it's going to start having an emotional intelligence, emotional connection with the user. With all of this, at least as it relates to your question on enterprise, I'll give you an example with Qualcomm. At Qualcomm, our IT has embraced all of this internally. Any new employee only gets a Copilot plus PC, obviously with all on-device AI. We have more than 20,000 employees right now using Copilot. We have about 5,000 engineers that use CodeGen to help, obviously, write code. What we did is we took a Llama model and integrated that with CodeGen. And just within a matter of months, we've been able to get the engineers, with the aid with CodeGen, it's written 1 million lines of code, right? So you can look at how we're maximizing productivity, because our goal is simple. We want to automate repetitive tasks. We want to be able to run stuff on device, run stuff locally. As we did all of this stuff, privacy was super important. Keeping our data intact was super important. I'll give you another example. We had, for any meeting, as you have group meetings and as program managers take notes and stuff, we deployed Copilot in there. Our average data shows that for any person that was taking notes, they're saving about 2 hours per day, just giving them more free time to be more productive in meetings. So, and all of this obviously stays on device. You can go access everything within your own framework of choice, and it never leaves your device. So that's obviously a benefit of how you see stuff being on device.
Makes sense. Excuse me. One other part of hardware that we often don't talk about as much with AI, but is, of course, very important, is all the infrastructure that goes into producing the chips, producing these, ultimately, if it ends up in your AI PC. Can you talk a little bit about this unprecedented demand that we're seeing for the chips infrastructure to power AI? And, I've reported on people like Sam Altman who are proposing 5 gigawatts data centers. We've written about broader global partnerships to support international chip production. How big of a problem do you think this is? Do we have the infrastructure to continue supporting generative AI development? And if not, how do we get there?
Yeah. Obviously, I think we all know it's the velocity at which the generative AI stuff is moving is rapid. There's no doubt about it. Everybody is trying to embrace this as quickly as possible. First, I think where we are today is just the beginning, because we still haven't gone into multimodals and stuff, right? And I'll use PC as an example because it helps make the point very clear. We're still, in terms of what we're doing with generative AI, is still more search-like. Obviously, with Microsoft Copilot Plus, you can do co-creator, you can create an image, you can try to visualize what you want to be able to make the point you're trying to make. But where it's going to get even more interesting is when you start looking at multimodalities, like a text into an image into PowerPoint, creating music. And, Panos here, I was listening to him earlier, he's talking about how the music industry is going to generate stuff. We've partnered, for example, with one of the ISVs called DJ Pro that actually has taken run stuff on the NPU and segregated music from vocal cords, right? So you can see how people are adopting it. So yes, the answer is it's moving rapidly. And at the same time, there are all of these data center folks that are trying to build capacity as rapidly as possible. And, they couldn't move any faster. This is why we believe that the more you have on-device AI, the more you're able to offload stuff from the cloud on device. It helps this ecosystem. And that's why I keep saying there's always going to be a hybrid approach. So a couple of things will happen. So today, again, to use the example, I talked about 13 billion parameters running on a 45 TOPS NPU today. A couple of things will happen out in time. One, I think you'll see more on-device AI. Second, the models that you have today will start to get quantized, and people will start to shrink the model. So what is a 13 billion parameter model today on a 45 TOPS NPU? Maybe it'll become 20 billion parameters tomorrow. What that just means is now you're offloading stuff from what's in the data center, which is obviously very expensive, you start moving it on device, right? So even things like for all of us that are in the enterprise environment and stuff, a simple search of what an employee does is an expensive search, right? Because that just means you're building more capacity somewhere else, you're building more data centers, and at the end of the day, it's circular. It's going to come back to somewhere somebody's going to pay for it. So the more we move to on-device AI, the more we move to a hybrid approach and then offload stuff to do more intensive tasks on the cloud, I think the better it is.
Makes sense. Are there specific areas, industries, use cases that really you're most excited about when you think about on-device computing and the potential there in the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years?
So I should say, is there an industry that I'm not excited about that's going to use it? Because we're in trials with so many enterprises today with deploying Snapdragon X Elite PCs. We're talking to folks in manufacturing, and when you think about manufacturing or operations as an example, what's important to an enterprise there is time to fix. You've got a production line, and you actually have a problem, your production line's on hold, it just means you're adding cost. So what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to quickly debug that, you want to quickly be able to understand what the root cause is and get your production lines back on. And it's only going to help with generative AI. Another example that we're working very closely with is customer service. There's a partner we're engaged with right now, helping them optimize their models on our on-device NPU. Think of it as it's a customer service model. So if you're a consumer that calls up this particular company, they are real-time processing stuff. So it's like if Kedar calls say a cable company and says, hey, my buddy here, Shirin, actually gets a much lower bill I found out on her internet, and I'm paying a lot more. That company actually does on-device AI, finds out all of the real-time information and says, okay, Shirin's been paying X dollars a month, Kedar's been paying Y dollars a month, and it calculates that and said, okay, Kedar's a loyal customer for the last 2 years. It automatically gives you recommendations on, hey, here's a few things. He's a loyal customer. Why don't you give him a 20% discount? It's going to automate stuff in terms of economics. So you think about manufacturing, you think about operations, you think about music industry, you think about architecture and how quickly you can accelerate things. There really isn't an industry that's going to take advantage. And I think that's exactly what we're excited about with moving stuff on device and helping all of these guys do more modeling work on our PCs.
Great. Well, I think that is a wonderful note to end on. Thank you so much for talking to me. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, everybody. How are you all doing? Good? Okay, good. Thank you all for joining us here today. It's been an incredible experience. Thank you to all of our speakers today. Thank you to all of you for just being engaged and listening and taking notes and doing all that. Thank you also to IBM, our sponsor for today. Can't thank them enough for that. If you would like some more information on them, head to the resources tab over on our event website, and you can find some more information there. Also, if there was something that you heard today that you wanted to hear a replay about and you didn't get to write down everything, you can go back to BloombergLive.com and you can watch it on demand there. And that would be it. We are not done yet. The business value of AI is coming to New York City, November 13th. If you cannot make it to New York City, you can always watch the live stream like some people are doing for today. So head over to BloombergLive.com and you can register there and find out some more information. That does it for us. Enjoy us for some networking, some cocktails outside, and for everyone on the live stream, have a good night. Thank you.